Welcome. This is our monthly gathering that we call the Learning Technology Group, where we simply pick a kind of an emerging technology topic that we think has some impact on teaching and learning, and we bring it to the table for discussion. We like seeing these sessions being highly interactive, and it's often we've got a presenter or two or three, and quite often it's not on a topic which we have a lot of experience with, but we want to introduce the topic and to see where the campus thinking is on this. And so I'm John Farquhar. I'm manager of teaching, learning, and technology within ATUS, and I'm one of the folks that helps tries to coordinate this every month. What we like to do to start off every session is to go around, introduce yourself. Today's topic is on digital badges. It would be useful if you would let us know what your interest is in this topic. If in fact this is something that you've already started to use in some fashion, or if you just have a specific use where you're thinking about, hey, this might be applicable for what I do, or if you're like completely novice to this, it'd be useful for us to know about that. So let me introduce my co-presenter.
So I'm Kevin Dixie. I'm an instructional technologist. I work for John, and I'm one of the Blackboard. God.
Oh, God.
No. I'm one of the Canvas admins on campus. So if you have Canvas tech support questions, you'll be talking to me at some point.
Speaking of Blackboard, I just found out we're retiring the Blackboard system, but it's still around as an archive. Apparently, it's been down for several days, and no one noticed.
Awesome.
So that's an interesting update. So AJ, we're just doing introductions.
Yep. I'm AJ Barce. I'm also an instructional technologist that works under John, and I'm up in the STC with David Hamler, so application support extraordinaire, especially with production.
Commander Blake, I'm an extended education as the e-learning specialist, and I'm here because we have a number of programs that are very interested in digital balance.
My name is Braden Miner. I'm the graduate research assistant for the CIIA, and I'm just here to learn more.
I'm Rachel Thompson. I work in archives and records management, and we're looking to expand our training offerings for our records coordinators on campus, so our admin people who take care of our public records here at Western. And so we're looking into digital badges as a way to track that and support that and get that really visible and cool.
Have you started a program or just looking into it?
No, we're just now starting to look into
Great.
Badges as a way to track things. We set up a Canvas site to start playing around with that and seeing what we can do.
Excellent.
To be here.
Okay, thank you.
Joe Myers, Facilities Management. We're interested in rewarding people with digital badges and also tracking training.
Tracking?
Training.
Training, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, great. Okay.
At VITA Russian Linguistics, I'm also connected with Center for Instructional Innovation. I'm here to learn more as well.
Okay. Great. Sean?
I'm Sean Stockberger. I'm the help desk manager, and we employ about anywhere from 15 to 18 student staff at any given time, and so I'm interested in a way to sort of motivate student employees to learn more and to achieve certain training milestones.
Chris?
I'm Chris Miller, manager of IT for the Student Union and Student Activities, and we're in the beginning phases of designing a personnel management system for our 250 to 300 student employees in the AS and VU, and a component of that system at some point would be a performance evaluation and training piece where we could actually track the trainings that our student employees undergo and include all their employee evaluation information in that system too, and so digital badges would be part of that process, I envision.
Casey Hayden, Student Activities Advisor. I work with clubs and some of our large event planning offices in the AS, and we have a system called OrgSync, and I've been thinking about for a while now how great it would be to have little badges for our club students who've gone through either leadership trainings or various trainings. I've got the budget training, I've got the whatever training, so that's got me interested.
I'm Gabe Gossett. I'm the librarian for extended education at Western, so I work with the off-campus programs, and I deal with developing online tutorials to some extent as well, and I think we've been interested in badges for a while now, and I looked into the Mozilla Open Badges, although I kind of plateaued out at a certain point in trying to attempt to implement anything. But we have these online tutorials where we want to be able to let students get credentials that they can then take to their instructors and say, look, I already did this tutorial, because sometimes they get asked to do the same tutorial in multiple classes, and that's something that we hope to address.
I'm Justina Brown, Center for Instructional Innovation and Assessment, and I also teach a freshman seminar, and for those students I often have them do the LIT, Library Information Tutorial, and I often feel terrible if they are asked to do that in more than one class, you know, and so if there were a way to,
That's exactly what we
yes,
have in mind.
if there were a way to know that this person has already done this portion of the LIT, then I don't have to make them do it again. And then also, under my instructional designer faculty development role, workshops that we do, we'd like to be able to badge for as well for faculty when they've completed something, which we actually have been exploring.
Great. And we had one latecomer.
James Yates, Facilities Management. I work under this guy, so whatever he said, I'm good with.
Great, great. So as Justina said, we're just starting to get our feet wet with this as well in our area. And you know, I've been following digital badges for several years, but I think that we might be very close to having some tools available for us to start doing this locally here. And so I'm hopeful, and maybe we can spend some time showing what those tools look like. I'm hopeful that we can actually start doing this on our campus. It seems like that there are lots of opportunities for us. So I've got the standard picture up here of the Boy Scout merit badge system as kind of the origins of this idea of a badge being some credential, some indication that of achievement that someone has performed something. And the digital badge is just a way of carrying that over into the digital environment. Something that I've really been getting my head around is this whole ecosystem of what a badging system looks like. So I have a graphic here. It doesn't all display at one time, but this is created by the Mozilla Open Badges, I don't know, consortium organization.
Command minus, that might zoom out the page.
Yeah, do a
Control minus.
Yeah, I actually want to show different parts of this. And so down here at the bottom, so designer of the Mozilla Foundation, I guess. Mozilla's a foundation. And they're a big proponent of a badging system that they're calling Open Badges as an open standard for being able to issue badges. So just kind of as an overview, what we have, first of all, is a badge issuer. And so this is an organization of some kind, like Western Washington University, other universities. It could be some other organization, like a professional organization. And I had the pleasure of actually being awarded a badge, a digital badge, from EDUCAUSE just a couple of weeks ago, and trying to make sense of that and make use of that. So these organizations then would issue these digital badges, and they would issue them to individuals. And my understanding is that that's tagged typically by an email address. And so this particular badge is then identified to an email address, to a recipient. And that recipient then can take this digital badge and collect them through an aggregating site quite often. Mozilla promotes what they call their backpack. So it's a separate organization where one can take multiple badges that you've earned from different organizations and be able to display them in one central location. There's another system called Credly that allows you to do that, bring in multiple badges and be able to display them. And there's other systems that are being developed. And then from that particular aggregator, then you'd be able to share that badge out to other sites where you might want to promote yourself. And so this might be on your Facebook page, your LinkedIn page, your personal website, to be able to show that particular accomplishment. So all these pieces kind of have to work together in some fashion for a badge system to really work. And there's a couple different organizations that are trying to work through this. And why would you have a badge? Well, to certify yourself in an area, to motivate people to achieve something, to just a personal recognition. Might be different ways of being able to recognize people. So here we go. I just wanted to find out, just get some input from you all then. We mentioned briefly what are some ideas for why we want to have a digital badge being issued to individuals, and Gabe mentioned the library information tutorial. And there we have a situation where students that might be taking multiple classes, and each class might require this library information tutorial to be completed. And instead of having the student have to complete it for every class, why isn't there some sort of central way for the student to say, hey, I've completed that, and be able to show that? Completing competencies for equipment use. Kevin is working with the engineering technology program. You want to describe what they want to achieve with that?
Yeah, what they've been doing for a long time is having multiple majors take a hazardous material test, basically. So they have to review some material that's online, it's a PowerPoint, and then they have to take a test on a website. Of course, they're sort of diffuse. Like, they look at the PowerPoint, it's either printed or it's downloaded somewhere, and then they go to a website, and then they answer the questions, and that has to get then emailed to someone who then collates them all and grades them, and then they have to enter them in something. So it's kind of a broken up process. So what we're thinking of doing, first we took the testing part of it and automated that in Canvas. So we've got a test that automatically grades. We've got the PowerPoint that the material that they can review right there in the quiz, so they can open up, review the material, go answer the quiz, and then that's automatically graded and put into Canvas. And then what we're thinking of the next step is actually Canvas has the ability to use badges. They have a plugin for Canvas, which we could implement campus-wide, but in this case, currently we're just doing it course by course. Called Canva badges? Yeah.
Canva badges.
Canva badges, is what it's called, which allows me to then say, all right, I'm going to create a badge. The badge is going to be for this particular course, and then I can specify what will kick off the badge being issued to the student. It could be completion of the quiz with a certain score. It could be viewing certain material. You have lots of criteria. And then the badge can either be issued manually or automatically. So those are the different options. So what we're going to do is then create a badge that just simply says this person has completed this amount of this quiz. They are now certified that they understand this material, and that allows them to see in sort of one look, oh, great, these people all did this. All right? The badge then persists with the people's profile within Canvas. So you can see that they have that badge, which they're really, that's appealing to them. So that's a perfect example of how we're looking at implementing it. I've also spoken to faculty who are really interested in going the next step. I'll turn it over to you, which is having, they use a lot of digital tools in their teaching, but they want to make sure the students have a certain level of digital literacy coming into their class. So one of the ideas is then working with the Student Tech Center so that they can do the same kind of thing, and a student can say, oh, my students have this level of digital literacy, or they don't. Oh, they need to go get training.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do with the STC is that we have workshops that are student taught, and they range from a small group to entire classes that professors actually slate on our schedule to be hosted by us.
Right.
Well, the thing is that if we have student A that's in one class one quarter, and that same student A goes to a different class the next quarter, well, they're assigned to mandatory attendance to our workshop. Well, why? So what we're hoping to see is that through badging, we'll have students registered for our classes and have these badges, and so a prof can go, oh, well, 15 out of my 20 students already have this, so I'll just have these 5 students come to the STC, get the training, get the badge, and continue with the actual classwork.
And Andrew, Justina, and I are just wrapping up two workshops we've given to faculty, and we're in the process of issuing them digital badges and seeing how well this process can work. And we can show you a little bit about that if you'd like to see that. But I'd like to hear from you all. You mentioned several potential opportunities for doing badging. What more details or Gabe, what? What would you like to achieve?
The Canvas profile, how visible is that? Is that just visible to if the student's enrolled in your class, or can you?
Well,
just
yeah, well,
make
the
it-
only way you can see a student's profile is if you go in and look at it, and you have to have access to them. They have to be in the class with you. You mean, can another student see it?
Or anyone?
No,
I
anyone
mean,
can't.
So,
No.
okay.
No, it has to be someone. It has to be someone who shares that class with them. Now, to that end, Canva Badges also supports open badges and Mozilla Backpack. So not only can the badges be issued here, but the way it works is Canva Badges, they issue them for our institution, but they also reside at Canva Badges, which can also share with Mozilla Backpack and other sort of open badge services. So not only will our badge persist here, but it can also be moved out to other sources to be shared elsewhere, like on their LinkedIn site or their Facebook site or Google Plus or whatever.
Is that a two-way street? If they have badges from some other issuing institution in Open Badge and the Mozilla Backpack, can they import those into Canvas and display them on?
Currently not. No. So currently it's just it's what you got. You got our badges. I would like to see that. Of course, Canva Badges is fairly new. It was actually written by one of the Canvas people. So we're working with them, and they're accepting lots of input of what we'd like to see. But at this stage, no, it doesn't.
It still is a beta product, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So this is an example of a profile that, as the instructor of this course, this is just a sandbox course that I have, and these are the people that are enrolled in it. But as the instructor, I can go to take a look at the profile information of this individual, and it will automatically display the badges that that individual has earned. Now, Kevin, do you have an answer for this? Because when I'm logged in as that individual, I wasn't able to look up my own badges.
No.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, and no, I don't know why it wouldn't do that.
Okay.
But I do
okay.
know that it does not allow you to go look at your own badges.
And
Someone else can. I mean, yeah,
and
presumably they don't want you looking at yourself. I don't know.
And I'm assuming that other students in that class
No.
as well can't look at the badge profile information.
Now, as far as I know, currently it's the instructor.
It's
has the
just
ability.
that this badge information using this
Yeah.
particular tool that we're trying out right now. It's just available to the instructors.
Exactly.
Those identified instructors of this particular Canvas course.
So you can't share these badges from Canvas directly to a social media platform.
But
have
you
to-
can.
Oh, you can.
Yes,
So.
you've done
Yes,
that.
so I can show that in a moment. I've been somewhat successful in
Well,
doing
go ahead
that.
with that.
Okay, great. So let's see, how do I best show this? I do have some screenshots that are in here.
Yeah, your LinkedIn one. I think, right?
Okay, so once an instructor or once a student has earned the badge within the Canvas environment, and we can show you how to set that particular up, because presumably you can set it up so that there's an automatic award. If someone has viewed certain websites or completed a quiz at a certain level, presumably it should automatically award a badge.
You'd think, huh?
I haven't gotten that to work entirely, but what we have gotten to work is that that the instructor can check a box and manually award badges, and so that's what I did in this particular case. And so after that happens, the student can come back into the Canvas site, and they'll come to this particular page where it gives information about the badge. And all this information that's described here, I mean, this is a description of the badge. This says issued by Western Washington University. This badge signifies completion of an advanced 3-week workshop, which includes preparing digital materials and assessment for a blended online course. The requirements for completion, so they needed to do these things, as well as the kind of the email address that was being issued to. All that information is embedded within the badge. And so when I take that image and move it to other locations, other people can actually get the detailed information about what this badge actually means.
I'm going to add one thing to this, too.
Mhm, yeah.
The way you set the badge up in Canvas, because there are different ways to issue badges. The way Canva Badges works, if you're using Canvas, you would need to use the modules part of Canvas, and which is what we recommend anyway, putting all your content in modules. The badge issuing part of it goes into a module. You or I, or whoever set up the class, you can go in and you set up a piece of that, it's called an LTI, into the module for issuing a badge. So you can just click on it and set it up. The student can then go to that piece of the module, click on it, and see that they've earned the badge. So in that respect, they can see it, but they can't go to their profile and see it.
Yeah,
It's-
that's an
it's
interesting
slightly different
part to it.
Now, I've looked at other badging systems that would also work within Canvas that work sort of globally within the course. It doesn't matter. You don't have to put it in a module. You can just attach it to sorts of lots of different things. However, that was in an early alpha stage, and we really weren't in the mood to sort of early alpha something at that point. As that progresses along, we'll look at that, but currently Canvas Badge was a little bit more robust, so that's why we went with that.
Yeah, so here's an example of what Kevin was talking about. This is just a sample course. I've got a module that is made up of various elements. In this case, there's just a page that, basics of hoovering, then there's a quiz, and then there's this badge, which then specifies the criteria. And if you look here in the tiny gray print, you can say what the requirements are. You must view this page, you must score at least a 1, and then presumably you've completed this module and this particular badge, which we put together in about 15 minutes.
Spiffy.
Yes. And here's all the detailed information about the description of the badge. And you identify what you have to do to complete that badge, in this case, Module 1, and then save those badge settings. And you can see who here has earned it and who hasn't.
So the student can then go to that module and check to see if they have earned. Can they from there share to Backpack, or would they
So
have
what
to
they
go
get,
to the email that they got?
Yeah. So what they get when they've actually have completed that badge, they come back to the site and they have this interface. So they can check this box, which says show this badge on my Canvas profile. And then they can click the button here and it'll show them all of the badges that they have earned through this system, the Canva badges system. Or they can choose to go ahead and export it out to their Mozilla Backpack. And what they have to do there is, okay, that's just an example of displaying the badges within it. What they have to do there is they then need to log in to their Mozilla Backpack. So every individual wants to do that. They've got to go over to the Mozilla Backpack site, register themselves with that same email address. So if we're issuing badges given their student email address, they need to create a profile over at the Mozilla Backpack site with that email address. Then they can come in here, accept the badge, and here I am logged into Mozilla Backpack, and I've earned a couple of badges that are then being displayed within my Backpack site. I can organize these things in different areas, and so I can actually create a page that has badges earned all from Western, or I can create a page, maybe these are all badges that are technology-related badges, and create a page just for that. And then those pages can be shared out in various ways. Here is an attempt that I did of actually adding a badge to my LinkedIn site, and it doesn't work.
I think
great.
I know what part of the problem of that is.
Yeah.
That there's so when you create the Canvas badges in Canva badges, it prompts you for a 90 by 90 pixel icon. However, you can create a custom badge. When you create the custom badge, it prompts you for a 200 by 200 pixel icon. I suspect that's a bit of an oversight on Canva Badge's part. I'm guessing you probably shouldn't use a 200 by 200 pixel icon, or else that's going to happen.
Is that right?
Because I can tell you, a 90 by 90 would fit in that opening. So there's things that we're sort of working through right now. The other thing I think it's important to understand is that Badges is not an end-to-end solution, or like we can't provide the end-to-end solution. As you probably are already seeing, they got to have some place to put them in order to take the next step and share them. They have to set up a Mozilla Backpack account or one of the other services that offers some sort of badge aggregating. But I think now's the time to start thinking about that, like what's out there, how does this happen, what's the process? Because we're starting to see the value in being able to do this. I mean, I think if you think about it, I can think there's a lot of applications, but it's something that's going to require some education. It's going to require teaching people, all right, here are all the different pieces you need to know to make this work, but also allows us to make the case, but here is why this would work for you. You know, so like I said, it's very much in its infancy, but we are definitely seeing quite a bit of potential here.
And that infancy is, there's different organizations that are developing slightly different standards for how badges might be implemented. We might find that, we're piloting this particular system right now. We might find that it doesn't work for us in all situations. We want to adopt something else.
Think beta and VHS.
Yeah.
Is the backpack tied to their student email address? Will they still have their badges after they graduate and their
Well, it's
email goes
completely
away?
independent of Western.
So, yeah.
So they
I
put
think
them
you
out.
could reassociate it with
Yeah, exactly.
That's a really good question, because you log into your backpack giving your username is your email address. So if that email address goes away, can you reassign that to another email address? I don't know.
And a lot of
You'd hope so.
accounts like that are shared do let you do that. They let you add a secondary email, and
Yeah.
you can make that the primary, and so.
How is Office 365 going to affect that? Isn't there something about persisting emails or?
If you, when a student graduates and their Office 365 account goes away, it basically gets rid of, closes your Office 365 account. Now, Microsoft will offer students to continue. I don't know what the deal will be, if they want to do that, but they would have to associate it with a new address, and you can do that with any Microsoft account by going in and adding a secondary email address and then setting it as your primary.
Got it.
So it's pretty easy to switch it.
Or just have them not use their Western address to set up their backpack account.
I don't recall having to sign in with my Google account.
Yeah, I found Mozilla Backpack to be a little, how should I say this?
Well, that was
Janky.
another
Yeah,
thing.
there you go. That's the word.
I was wondering was if you could associate it with like a Gmail address and then import badges from a variety of different addresses that you've authorized. Would be kind of cool, because then you could get badges from different sources more easily.
I like to try closing that.
I need to wait for my
Oh.
my code, and I can
Oh, I see.
But
continue.
that's a technical.
There it is. I have it here. Yes, go ahead and answer the question.
My question was how this would kind of relate to professional development. And so, in this case, you wouldn't have a professor that was starting the Canvas site, that was maintaining the Canvas site, but maybe, you would have different groups that you were involved in, and I'm assuming whoever's running that group, whoever's, in charge of that Canvas site would be able to access your badges, and then you would be able to.
Well, the blended learning classes, that was all professors, and
Right.
Justina and myself and John were technically the instructors
Right.
on it. Yeah, so that worked. That's how that worked. And any one of the three of us could have issued the badges to them based on the criteria.
And through Canva Badge, you would have to be an instructor of a Canvas site in order to get.
You would have to be an instructor of a Canvas. Yeah, I don't think a TA has enough administrative rights within a course. It's called a course within a campus, thing to be able to do that.
And is it currently something that anybody could add to, any instructor could add to
Oh,
the
yeah.
Canvas site?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
It
one
is.
of those, what do they call them, apps?
It's in the apps. I can show how it's done.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and show here how you go about finding this and adding it to one's course. So Canvas allows you to add lots of extensions and additional apps, and this happens to be one of them.
So you would come into your Canvas course, you come into settings on the lower left-hand side, and you'll be presented with this multi-tab interface. You're going to go to the tab that says Apps and click on it. And the simplest way to find it would be to
Filter by name on the right.
No? Over.
Oh, there it is. You can see it on your monitor here. Hold on. There we go. Badges. And it's that one. The one that says the big green badges. You simply, so within your course, you would go to this, you would click on badges. Right?
The setup is really kind of funky, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's because it's beta right now, and this is how it works. You need to add the tool, but then you also need to you have to use a Twitter account. All right, log in using a Twitter account at this address. So you have to have a Twitter account or create yourself a Twitter account. Log in at this address, which is controlled by the guy who wrote it. Right? So remember, it's small right now. Once you do that, you'll immediately get back a key. all right, a key and there's two things, a key and a
Shared secret.
A shared secret and a key. So when you do that, that will allow you to then enter the information within Canvas, because there'll be another screen that just has you put those two things in, and then you're ready to go. It's connected to your individual course. Now, what we're looking at right now is the possibility, because we could add it sort of globally for all of Western, so anybody can do it. We're just not at that point yet where we're comfortable saying, hey, everybody, you got badges. We just want to control a little bit more and figure out the ins and outs before we decide to take a step like that. Or in fact, perhaps use another badge, a different sort of badging tool. So right now we're very much in the testing phase. But anybody can add it currently.
When you do add it globally, if you do add it globally, is there going to be a place where all the badges that get created across the Western Canvas setup are sort of centrally listed and available, so that if I teach an English 101 class and someone else teaches a different section of English 101, we use the same badge as opposed to two separately created badges?
Do you know that? I actually don't know. I know that all the badges are available at Canva Badge. Right, so that's a repository for them. If I had to guess, and we haven't tried this yet, my guess is that they'll all be at Canva Badge and do a search. Because I played with...
well, there's a way that when you create your badge, you can identify it as being available publicly.
Right.
But that's, I think, for all those institutions that are using this Canva Badge tool.
Let me go in.
So I don't...
Do you have badges in this course?
Hmm?
Do you have badges in this course?
Yeah, under modules. I
Right,
have a badge.
so I'm gonna add a new one.
Yeah.
So I'll show you how it works.
I'm thinking if they're all published publicly, then if we just enforce a naming scheme to make it really easy to find them all, then we could probably.
Maybe they should all, say WWU something.
Yeah.
Right, I was just at a conference, where the style guide for badges was a topic of conversation, and that different areas of the campus that was presenting had said, well, we've got this kind and they've got this kind, and some are one style and some are another. So it might be a worthy conversation just to, like you said, they all say Western, and because they could be ported to other places, maybe some kind of color scheme or something.
I was going to kind of reiterate that I think it would be great if we could have standards as to how they're named, who can give them, kind of make sure that you don't get them for just showing up to work or something. But I was also wondering with the, if this did become a global thing within Canvas, if there would be a site, if that would make badges visible to other people. So like, let's say we did it for the records management, and we had the records coordinators earn badges for doing training in records management. Could we have a place where their managers or supervisors can come in and see, oh yes, they did earn this badge, and kind of they can show off? Is that something that could happen in that? Because I think that would be really
So
great.
right now that only happens in the context of enrolled in a Canvas site.
Yeah.
Using this particular tool.
Does Canva badges have a sort of an admin site that you could log into separately?
Yeah, not that I've seen.
Not currently.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to point this out. So, in this one, because already Canva badge is turned on, when you open it up, it asks you which badge you want to actually put in. So, what I'm noticing is these badges right here are ones that we created. All right. However, in my Canvas site, I created the first test one was called showering or something. It's a person showering. It's called the cleanliness badge. I would say because I issued it to you, I think.
Yes.
It's not in here, so that means that the badges that John has accessible are the badges that John has created.
Yeah.
Given that you only see your badges and I only see the ones that I've created, I would suspect if we implemented them campus wide, we would all see all the campus badges. Also, I think if we were to go that direction, whether it's with this or any other badging system, there's a couple things we should probably do. We should come up with a graphic standard for how badges look.
Yeah.
We should come up with standards for how to issue, what constitutes issuing a badge. And there's also another level of badge information which we really need to dive into, which we haven't done yet, which is pertinent information that can be connected to the badge. So the badge is not only a graphic, but there's a JSON file connected with that. That's information, all right? And that information travels with the badge. Now that information could be things like what you got it for, what the issuing institution, that kind of thing, but it can also be a time limit on the badge, it expires at a certain time, needs to be renewed, things like that. So we need to also look at what levels of information can be attached to a badge and what we consider important. Like, do we want badges that we issue to students or to faculty or whomever to last indefinitely or to last a certain period of time? Do they come up for renewal? That kind of thing. So there are lots of different levels of things that we need to address when looking at badges that we're just now starting to think about. But that's the direction we need to start thinking, because those will all have a great impact on sort of what tools we use, how we approach it, what we choose to issue them for. The other thing I'd like to just introduce into this conversation, because we've been talking about it internally, is that in some ways badges represent an interesting quandary, I think, because it's this idea of sort of micro, what's the word for it?
Credentialing?
What's that?
Credentialing?
Yeah, it's like a micro-credentialing. So within the context of a university, all right, you have this other level of sort of giving, credentials for these skills. All right, so I think one of the conversations that needs to happen is like, what are the delineations? What do they mean? How do they affect the student? Because a lot of what I've been reading about badges is people talking about things like, oh, well, maybe in the workforce people just want to know what your skills are. Are we moving toward a skill-based system as opposed to more degree-based like we do now? So those I think are just conversations that are much more far out, but I think we still need to start the dialogue now, as we move down this road. Not to say we still think there's a lot of potential, but there's just lots of things we need to think about going forward.
Oh, go ahead.
Is that within the information in the tag? Could you state whether this is like backed by an internationally accrediting
Sure.
agency? Or
You can do that.
Yeah, very much so.
But it's backed by an international agency.
like the
Your
College
tutoring.
Reading and Learning Association gives Western's Tutoring Center, authority to give credit to our students for completing a course.
Yeah.
And so once they've completed this course, they're technically, they have accreditation by CRLA through us.
Yeah.
And, if we were to create a badge for that, that would, say not only did they complete this course, but it's backed by CRLA.
Right, and so you probably would include that in the meta information
Right.
that's attached to the badge, but the badge itself still has to be issued by Western,
Right.
essentially. Yeah.
So that all,
Now if CRLA actually
Unless they decide to use a
have
badging
badge
system.
already, then we could
Exactly.
potentially, yes. Issue their badge or somehow have access to that badge. Perhaps they could share the badge. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that can go. Yeah.
Well, we've been talking on the help desk for some time, mostly myself and the help desk coordinator and our lead student tech, about ways that we can identify skills, like who our experts are in certain areas. And also, we do have certain expectations for, like, okay, we would like new student staff to know certain things by the end of their first quarter on the help desk. And for them to be able to advance to the next level of student employee, we also would expect them to have certain skills. And so we've been talking about doing something like this for some time, and we've done some, we've used Canvas training courses to sort of, teach them, let them demonstrate, okay, do they know enough about Banner to have Banner accounts and to be able to support Banner? And so I imagine that there would be some crossover where, we might, say there's a Canvas course that you need to take that issues that badge. It might be one that the STC has created, or it might be one that Chris has created, or one that we've created. So there could be some potential for, some cross-training there, and having, a new student employee start in any department and saying, well, as part of this job, you need to go get this badge. Would that be a potential use down the line for something like this?
Well, I mean, I'm going to sample a bit for Canvas. I'm one of the admins, so obviously. But the other reason is that, okay, it's a system we have in place. It has great functionality. It has a lot of flexibility to push content out for testing, for keeping track of things. I mean, it's there. We have it, right? So I think it represents a really interesting tool for being able to do this kind of stuff. And I don't think we are currently even scratching the surface of what it is capable of. So one of the reasons I think we moved forward with badges within Canvas is it seemed the best sort of fit for us. Like, we got this big thing here. It's being widely adopted. Students will be using it. I mean, it's sort of they got a perfect storm of things coming together. So badges will work within this system, great. I think it has great potential for things like testing, for things like pushing information out, for gathering data. There's quite a lot built into the whole system, so that's good. I also think that we face a real need at Western for some sort of digital literacy that we need to, and I think we all recognize that that's something we need to know. We need to get a handle on who knows what and how they know it, and students coming in where their digital literacy is, because we as trainers see this a lot, where there's this assumption that all students coming in know this stuff, like in quotes. And of course, those who work in tech support know that's just baloney. That doesn't work that way at all. So ways to be able to give the students the digital literacy need, and quite frankly, to give the faculty the digital literacy they need to make them more comfortable, to get them comfortable with tools, because we see it all the time. I walk into an office and I get these stone faces that are saying, I got to use this. What do I do? Great. So I think on both sides, we have a real opportunity to be able to help people make these steps, be able to get them certified, get content to them, track them, test them, give them some sort of something that says, how to do this now, and be able to vet them out in a way that they feel like they're confident they can do this stuff, and that we're confident that they have a certain level of expertise is not the word I'm looking for, but competence. Yeah, there we go. Functional competency, if you like, just a certain level of being able to do these things. So
I think you're right that badges should live in Canvas because training should live in Canvas. It's a great tool for that.
Yeah, exactly.
As we look at developing a system for performance evaluation for our student employees, I'd like to be able to pull that badge information into that separate system. So
Sure.
Is there some kind of API or RESTful interface or something that would let us pull that JSON data you were talking about out of WorkSync and into our application?
Probably.
Or Canvas, sorry, not WorkSync.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that it's open badge is standard. The badge information, which is essentially graphic and the JSON before they get married. There are open source tools that allow us to take that same content and marry them and then create up a badge, all right, that's got all the information wrapped up together. So to that end, I'd say yes, there's probably going to be ways to be able to pull the stuff out. Also remember, it gets created somewhere. Either we're creating them here, we're creating them through the tools. And also, once they're in Canvas, they can go out through Backpack. So I don't see that as something that's a huge stumbling block, but I will say it's not something that I can point to today and say, there's this that does that.
So essentially,
Yet.
in addition to being able to export your badge out to Backpack, you'd be able to send it to, what's the system again that you're using for your performance
Well,
evaluations?
we're looking at developing one internally.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
great.
It's not really I'm trying to find a way to avoid the manual process of having a student or an instructor click export every time they get a badge.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Like
Wanna
a
have it-
central repository, we could just, you could tap into, we could tap
When
into.
I have it automated.
Yeah, I agree. And that's actually one of the things that we have been thinking about. It's like, okay, because now we have 4 badges, big deal. But at some point, if a lot of people get into this, we got 50,000 badges, and how do we handle that? Now I know there are universities that have big repositories of badges, and they handle the badges internally. They've got their own repository of badges there at the university. So
Purdue has built a system.
Purdue, that's right.
Yeah.
So that's a system where I think we would do the kind of thing you'd be looking at, where we would have a central repository of badges that would feed into whatever system we use, and would feed into whatever system you use, and whatever system you're using, and whatever system everybody's using, and that would also be able to push out to open systems that allow them to share in whatever direction they want.
For the facilities folks, where do you want to have this information reside? Where is it that you need it to?
We don't know.
Yeah.
We're just looking for some place to store the same information everybody else is. Use it as a carrot to get people to take them.
Yeah.
And a way of rewarding them when they have, and a way of recognizing their competency when they have completed something.
And these are staff. These are employees.
Yes.
Are there student employees as well? I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yesterday when I was talking to E-Tech, the very smallest of details struck the person I was talking to as being important. So they're gonna have like 500 people they want in this chemical safety class. The quiz they take is nothing. I mean, we're talking 12 questions, multiple choice. We're not talking, the SATs here. It's really simple. So we're setting that up for them. I show them how that process works. And the fact that within the system, okay, so we can issue the badge, they could grade the quiz, they got all their people in it. The fact that we could go in within Canvas and actually just message everybody who hadn't taken it yet, or who hadn't passed it, which was like this huge thing, which to us is nothing. And they're like, oh my God, that's the best thing in the world. Like, really? But what you're saying is the same kind of thing, to be able to communicate, I've got this, I need you to do this, you haven't taken it yet, you haven't scored enough yet, you didn't pass it or whatever. I think it's that communication cycle that's important. That I think is the key. The other thing I think is going to be key to this really working well is a way not only to share them within these kinds of services, but to be able to share them more locally. Like if I could bring up my phone and go, there's my badge right there, some way to, I mean, I hate to think of it this way, but almost like if you had like your phone hanging off your neck, that's my badge for this, allows me to get into
wear
a building
digital
or something.
sashes.
Yeah, I know, something.
Make it show each of our
But it's
badges on them.
that's the next step, is that little moment where you can say, you've got something that you can say, oh, are you qualified to go in this building? I don't know, we're going to keep the radioactive monkeys. You just pull out your phone, I got my badge, okay, I'm in. That's the next step, is being able to personalize it, to be able to really attach it to you, in a way that you it's almost like a digital wallet where you can say, boom, here are my credentials, see? And I think of my Geico card is now on my phone. And I know it sounds silly, but I can never find my registration and my insurance card if I get stopped, but it's on my phone now. I know where my phone is. So it's that same idea of personalizing to the point where you're like, ta-da, here's my stuff. And I think is one of the missing pieces. It's like, how do we get it connected to us?
You need to have a mobile app that you automatically log into that can show all of your badges.
Yeah.
Well, this would probably not be as relevant for students, but I know at the last place I worked, they had the executive assistants take Microsoft certification classes, and then they got essentially a digital badge they could have by their email signature that said, I know all this stuff.
Oh yeah,
in
sure.
Office.
Sure.
So something like that even would be really great if we could, let people take their badges out of Canvas and into like email or
some way to get it connected to your information
like
in
your
a way
email
that's really
signature or
immediate.
something.
Yeah, I agree.
So what's to stop the crafty, devious student from creating a badge that looks just like the blended learning level 2 or the lit, level 1? That, the graphic is very similar and maybe the title has a period somewhere and, they've crafted this thing that looks very similar but, is obviously not the same. And passing that off as their badge to an instructor.
Well, it's not just a graphic, right? It has graphic that is embedded into it this metadata.
Yeah.
Right.
And part of that metadata is the issuing authority of Western Washington University. Now, I don't know how that can be, cheated, replicated.
But if you were if you had access to like an instructor Canvas site through an adjunct professor or someone who had a site and gave you access somehow, or he himself or she herself created a badge that she students paid
I
her for
created
this
a
badge.
showering badge, and technically, because I'm an admin on Canvas, it's an official badge.
Right.
All right, so part of the process is that if we go sort of, campus-wide with something like this, there's going to have to be safeguards in place to know who has the authority to be able to do this, and it's going to have to track back to them. And I would imagine probably there's going to need to be requirements on the metadata within the badge by Western to say, this is what we need. That's going to have to connect that badge to you as the issuer. That allows for a greater level of you taking that person having to take responsibility for it. So I think it's going to have to be something along those lines. That's a great question.
Yeah.
Because I thought the same thing looking at my showering badge, going, that's a real badge right now.
So with this system, anyone with instructor privileges could recreate the same thing.
Sure.
Right, but since all these badges and the metadata reside in a database somewhere in the back end
Sure.
of Canvas, then everyone has a unique identifier
Right.
associated with it. So
Yeah.
if we just know what that unique identifier is, people can't duplicate the badge in a practical sense.
Do you know what the encryption level is on something like Mozilla Backpack for protecting the?
It's beta, so I'm not 100%
Yeah.
sure. I would assume like once this goes like mainstream, it's going to be there's going to have some sort of layer of AES, so like some sort of encryption or whatever. The other thing that I would offer is that it's kind of like the metadata of this. If like if you ever go to a website and notice there's a little shield that says this is verified or verified sites, these easily with that metadata, Western can be part of a repository or a collective that says this is a verified account, like Twitter. I mean, if Twitter can do it, badges can do it. Because it's not just the graphic, it's the back end data that's part of this that gets vetted.
I mean, it's a real concern. I mean, we're not trying to downplay it. It definitely is something that could happen.
And if a teacher isn't very tech savvy and they're just looking to see if you have the lit badge or not, they're not necessarily going to go and look at that data and see who issued it.
Right.
And I mean, it's kind of, I've got a devious mind, I guess.
No. I think ideally, because how do I put this? Not all professors are tech savvy. I think it's fair to say, and I think it would be fair to say too that if we were to go global, if you want to think of it that way, with doing badges, I would be more inclined to want to have badge creation authority to a much smaller group, and that a professor can say, oh, I need a badge for XYZ, and we create the badge for them, which is fine, because I don't think instructors are really going to want to make their own badges. I think that's probably not really likely. They just want to know that they can do it, and they're not going to be tweaking it. Oh, can it be blue background or something like that? They're not going to care. So I think having some sort of badge issuing authority would be good, because it's less people that you have to pay attention to, and it's also, you can have direct responsibility. You can say, these people are culpable for anything that goes on with the badges. So that's how I would approach it, and I don't think we would have problems. I really don't think the faculty would care one way or the other. Yes, sir.
I guess one thing that I would add to that is that I imagine that these are going to be so granular in nature that, let's say a teacher says you have to get how to use the PsycInfo database badge for this class.
Right.
And if they don't do it, then it becomes obvious they fail their assignment. Otherwise, I mean, it's really just to the student's benefit in most cases, the way I'm imagining it anyhow. And so it would just kind of become obvious and end up impacting the grade anyhow.
Well, and badges can be revoked. That's the other thing. And that's one of the things that we're looking at is, revocation of badges or time limits on badges. So there's that aspect of it too. If something were to slip through the cracks, well, we can probably get rid of that too.
Just a couple things I wanted to point out that I think we haven't talked about yet, and it's really not for this meeting, but for the future as we get closer, is that I think one of the successful things about badges, or why you do them in the first place, is to encourage achievement. And so to think beyond just, let's give a badge for the thing that's mandatory. Let's give a badge for the thing that's mandatory. Okay, this is our new tracking system for who's completed the mandatory thing. It's just one function of what badges can do for you. But there's others, and even one on the example sheet that you gave about, a professor said a film studies class or something says, hey, it's great that here's all the suggested viewing movies, for instance, that aren't required, but if you get through 80% of them, or you get 100% of the movies watched, and you can verify that with this little form on Canvas, or you submit 500 pages, try to work, synopsis, whatever the thing. And then some people would strive to get that badge, even though it's not required, and I think it'd be nice to have the flexibility and encourage that kind of badge creation and badge achievement. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that, I think a lot of this is really familiar to people who play video games, getting achievements, getting trophies, and that's awesome. I think we need to gamify education more, and so, but one of the things that makes those attractive is the fun element of them too, in the sense of naming conventions shouldn't just be blah. They have to have some fun to them. They have to have the graphic be interesting or punish or something. Not all of them, obviously there will be some serious ones, but I think for the ones that are more like, oh, you strove and did this, or oh, you went to the platinum level or whatever, then hopefully we can do some fun.
I think the gamification of stuff like this is a great idea, because I think that we need to not be afraid of going in that direction. We need to embrace it. you know, and I think that's something education sometimes has not been really good at. You know, don't want to go down that way. It's like, why? You know?
And
Oh, I
Oh,
was simply listening.
Can you take a badge, though, something that is sort of achievement or earn thing, you know, and say, you know, you just have like a customer service badge. And can you reissue that same badge or add a +1 or something like that to it if someone continues to perform at that?
We did this where we had, these are really for the same sequence, just broken up into two pieces.
Level, yeah, you just have a level 1,
Yeah,
level
level
2.
1, level 2. Sure, you can do that. You know, or add an extra star to it. I've never seen so. You know.
Put the year on it so that you get earn it in every odd year or something.
Yeah, and one of the pieces of metadata is when it was issued.
Yeah.
And again, you can have a timeline for it too. It's only good for 1 year. Then
Yeah, you could have it expire and then have a new one issued that was, you know, power up. You know, so
yeah.
So Human Resources just hired somebody to coordinate professional development and employee evaluations and that whole kind of side of HR. And I think it would be great to partner with her to use this badging system, kind of in the way Casey was describing, to encourage people to do things like engage in professional development opportunities on campus, or participate in a professional staff organization, or you know, Center for Service Learning, or all these different things that employees could potentially get awarded for or get recognized for, that would be to their benefit.
Well, year before last, I won Classified Staff of the Year, and I really would have liked a badge. That would have been cool. I mean, yeah, I got a picture up in, you know, Old Main somewhere. It was an ugly picture too, but it was like, I kept thinking, man, I would have loved like a flaming sword badge or something like that. That's me. Check that out. Isn't that awesome? You know, so I think that would be great.
retroactive badges.
Yeah.
And there are also, you know, I mean, I know HR has a whole list of things that a new employee is supposed to, courses they're supposed to take through HR. And then there are other areas too, you know, you know, Link talks about having some basic information security awareness that, you know, all staff should have. Kind of thing.
Well, and also, I mean, there's also just the idea of it's a certain level of certification that can help people get better jobs. You know, let's say you're hiring in Western, and you look at somebody, you're like, holy cow, look at all this stuff. Look at all the stuff they do. You know, things like that, or getting jobs outside of Western. Not that anybody wants to do that, but you know, being able to say, check these out. These 18 badges we have here, and look what they all do. You know, it's like there's long-term ramifications for a lot of this stuff, which I think could make it for a very dynamic sort of situation.
I think the key too would be just getting it on LinkedIn, which I know you can do through the Mozilla badges. I think as I talk to students, they dig LinkedIn, and they dig it when it's time, you know, when they're leaving. And so I think that LinkedIn is going to stick around, and I think that at least for a while. And I think whether we can find a way to skip the Mozilla integration and go straight to LinkedIn, or we use that Mozilla key thing would be, as we talk about it to our students, is like, this can get in on your LinkedIn profile. And I think that'd be helpful.
I was wondering if this could be applied to departments. I mean, I know it goes through email. Could a department get a badge for, you know, their sustainability efforts, or, you know, that kind of thing?
It's tied to an email address.
I don't know, maybe, yeah, potentially.
I mean, they would have to
know.
obviously, I guess the department's email address would have to be a
Well, there is a
canvas.
general,
Or you could mass issue to everybody in the department or the
Yeah.
dorm that.
Just all the
won
individuals in the
award.
department?
department, yeah.
Team award?
You could probably do that. You might even be able to tie it to, I mean, I'm sure departments have a central email for that department. So it's potentially, you know, we can look into that. That would be really interesting to be able to do that.
All right, we're at the end of our hour. So it sounds like this is something that a lot of people have interest in and that we need to pursue. Keep in touch with us. Please make sure that you've signed up on our list so that we can communicate back to you progress in this effort.
And there is a public site that's in Canvas. Anybody can hit the link, you can get to it. And that was sent out with the communication to campus. So if you hit that later this afternoon, resources will be there on the page that refers to digital badges.
Thanks for joining us.
So we should talk offline at some point about